Welcome to another video. Today let's paint an easy beginner-friendly flower. A full list of materials is in the description. The flower is pretty large, and in order to allow myself more time to work without worrying about hard edges, I pre-wet in the central area. This also allows the watercolor to bleed towards the center. Since I want to create soft highlights and highlights with water droplets, there is no need to preserve any white space. Once I pre-wetted the central area, I begin by adding watercolor around the edges. I will help the watercolor move with the brush. It is always possible to add more pigment later, while the paint is still wet. In order to create highlights, I can leave an area with only a light wash of watercolor. This helps to create a soft edge. The highlights can also be created by soaking up watercolor with a dried off brush, almost like a sponge. Once the watercolor starts drying, I will add some drops of clean water to create beautiful blooms. The effect will be even stronger if the light wash of watercolor in that area is really light. Let's move on to the second flower. In order to make it easier for you to see which area I pre-wet, I'm using a light wash of magenta here. Just as before, I pre-wet in the center, then I add watercolor to all the outer edges. Once the watercolor starts drying, I add drops of clean water to create blooms. As long as the watercolor is still wet, I can make small corrections like add more pigment, soak up watercolor to avoid puddles, or add more water to create blooms. Key here is to create straight lines as the outer edges of the flowers. This will make the painting look really neat and clean. Easy flowers are very effectful when the color choices are right. I selected complementary colors, which mean colors from opposite sides of the color wheel. The bright magenta is straight out of the tube, and the green I mixed from hooker's green and turquoise in order to add some more blue undertones to the green. In fact, this color is one of my favorites, so I usually have some pre-mixed on my palette. In order to create the stem, I'm using a smaller brush. Small, confident lines are really working here. I chose not to touch the wet flower with the green paint mix, as the green watercolor would bleed into the magenta. This can look really cool, but I prefer a very dominant bloom on the flower. I feel it would take away from the effect of the blooms. For the leaves, I'm using a larger brush again. I fill the brush with watercolor and try to complete the leaves with as few brush strokes as possible. I could just use a larger brush, but a smaller brush gives me a greater chance of success with the look I'm going for. I want to create an uneven look on the leaves, where more pigment is on the top and the bottom of the leaves. In order to enhance the look, I can always drop in some more watercolor pigment or clean water, as long as the paper is still wet. Let's repeat the process with the second leaf. I'm really in love with the look of uneven washes and blooms in loose watercolor paintings. For those paintings, I prefer those over a ton of details, like veins in the leaves. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. Just as before, let's use some water drops to create some blooms. This time they are smaller for some variation. Adding water drops at different times during the drying process will result in different looking blooms. For reference, look at the flowers. For the top flower, I added the water later in the drying process. For the flower on the right, I added the water drops earlier in the drying process. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon with the next video.